G'day Bomber fans, there is some news. We have to discuss some news today. We'll call it a news update. There's a lot to get through today. We've got some player movement, some coaching news, AFLW news, some board news across all lines. Really, we're talking about the club, which is fun. Before we get into that, before we get yapping, I am going to have a video out on Friday with the magnificent Fiona from Bomber Banter. She is making her Everything Essendon debut. That is the 16th Essendon debutante for 2025. We get one more out before the year ends, which is fun. But yeah, we're going to be talking about the preseason. We're going to be chatting about individual players, talking about who we liked from this year's preseason. She is a great person to talk about for this because she is regularly at training sessions, not just Essendon, but she recently posted a video talking about other sessions she's been to comparing clubs to Essendon, which is a great idea. So check out that video on Bomber Banter, but also check out the video that we will be posting on Friday. It should be good fun and very insightful, hopefully, as well. But let's just get yapping. Let's start by talking about the draft, because we love a good draft here on Everything Essendon. I am, of course, a certified draft nerd, a self-proclaimed draft nerd. But last night there was another draft. We talked about the AFL draft a lot. We probably overdid it this year, but we're talking about the AFLW draft now because it occurred last night. It's probably a bit easier to digest. I'm going to be honest here, I don't know much about the AFLW draft landscape. If I'm being honest, I follow the AFL draft a lot closer, but the AFLW draft, at least it goes quicker. It's over one night, not the two, so it's a lot easier to digest, and it's a lot funner, I guess, because there's a lot less, ad breaks and everything going on in between. But this off-season and draft was a big one for the Bombers. We, of course, added Zoe Prowse from the Adelaide Crows to our list. It was a great trade because she's a very talented young player who will hopefully boost our defence, but we not only added her to the list, but we turned away the Crows' advances for our pick 6. We managed to bring in Zoe Prowse. We kept pick 6, which meant we can use it in the draft, and we did. So with pick 6, which became pick 10 after matched bids, the Essendon Bombers added Maggie Johnston from the Greater Western Victoria Rebels. She's been in the draft landscape for a while, it seems. She made a name for herself as an under 16 for Vic Country and has been viewed as a top 20 talent for most of the year. Again, look, I don't really follow the AFL draft nearly as much as the men, so I don't know too much about Maggie Johnston, but she was a late invite to the draft ceremony. She was only invited the night before it occurred, kind of like what happened with Lockie Dovison in the AFL. She's a powerful midfielder. She's got a booming kick, it seems, and although she doesn't win much of the footy, she is apparently a high impact or a maximum impact player. She is low disposal, high impact, which is kind of what we needed at the Bombers in the AFLW, and I think there's definitely a place for her in the senior team. You think about the additions of Grace Bellany, Holly Riderwood, the other draftees last year. It's becoming a very young Essendon team, but while North Melbourne are completely dominating, winning, I think they won 3 billion games in a row. They've won back-to-back premierships, of course. They're clearly the best team in the competition. I think now is a good time to stock up on young talent. I actually don't know what the rules are with Tasmania entering the comp and what their women's team is going to be like with the draft regulations there, but I'm going to assume it's going to be pretty compromised eventually when they come into things. And if you think the AFL draft is compromised as it is now, the AFLW draft looks like a bloody mess. I think Gold Coast had 7 or 8 academy players taken in the draft, which is crazy. I don't know how that is possible, but I guess it is. But yeah, Maggie Johnston will enter the team. We've obviously got some spots in that forward half of the field available. She might not play midfield straight away, but she can definitely slot into a forward line and hopefully kick some goals for us next year. So welcome Maggie Johnston to the Bombers. Now, Maggie Johnston was the prized selection that we took in the 2025 AFLW draft, but that wasn't where our night ended. We had one more selection to use, and with one of the very last selections in the draft, with pick 50, Essendon selected Nalu Brothwell. This is a fun little story because she was a bit of a draft slider, I think, but her twin sister Mizuki Brothwell was a massive draft bolter taken by the Western Bulldogs at pick 14. So you get some twin sisters in similar locations staying in the same state, which is always fun. But we get Nalu Brothwell, who is a marking target up forward. She's only 173 centimeters, but she is apparently really good in the air, which makes her a bit of a target in the forward half of the field. She runs out games really well. In the coverage, someone said that she regularly runs out games at 90 to 100% without needing rest. So that is good for the Bombers. We can hopefully get her in the team and rely on her to be fit and durable as a forward target in the forward half of the field. Obviously, she's picked 50 late in the draft, so you don't expect the world from her, but she is a higher upside player. I saw some power rankings having her around the 30s range, so she is a tiny bit of a slider, all things said and done. But yeah, the two players taken for our AFLW team in the draft are Maggie Johnston and Nalu Brothwell. We, of course, added Zoe Prowse during the trade period as well, so we get some young players in the club, high upside players in some cases as well. And what I like about these additions, without knowing too much about these younger players, is that we boost every line of the field a little bit. So, you know, Nalu Brothwell in the forward half, you get Maggie Johnston, who in the forward half a bit maybe to start, but midfield eventually, and of course Zoe Prowse, who is well known for being a defender at the Adelaide Crows. She can also play forward, but she's played her best footy in defence for the Crows. So we're not only getting some younger, higher upside talent players to, you know, hopefully be in the team for the next few years and boost us going forward, but we get them across all three zones, which I think was desperately needed. It was really hard to pinpoint one area of the ground that the Bombers needed to fix. Obviously, we were a poor team in 2025, but hopefully we'll bounce back in 2026, and hopefully we get to see Nalu and Maggie play plenty of footy. So congratulations, welcome to the Bombers. From some AFLW list news to some AFL list news, we have added one more player to, or re-added one more player to the team. I've said a few times this year that we finalised our list changes, but this time I really do mean it, because with the 45th player added to Essendon's list in one of the worst kept secrets of the year, Will Setterfield has re-signed with the Essendon Bombers. He's been added to the club during the supplemental selection period. Obviously, he was delisted at the end of 2025. He was told by the club that they'd consider him if he trained on with us to add him back to the list. But you know, with the news of Hussein El Achkar being taken in the national draft, it reduced our list spots to nothing. Will Setterfield didn't have a spot on the team. Of course, you know, some bad luck stories with Nic Martin and that ACL. He's been added to the inactive list, so he won't play a game in 2026, which means we could replace him with one player. The player we have chosen to replace him with is Will Setterfield. So yeah, some bad luck for Nic Martin. Of course, a horrible story, but it's left a silver lining for Will Setterfield, who will get another chance at AFL footy, which many think he does deserve. It's an interesting one. It's probably a bit controversial. You know, obviously look, Will Setterfield on his day is a really solid role player in that midfield. He's a great tagger, a great shutdown mid. But, you know, right now he is off to the side at training. He's been training with the club, but mostly on the bike. He's recovering from a Liz Frank injury, his foot. But he won't be back in training for a little while, and I don't know if he's actually going to be in consideration for round one of the season. I'm not 100% what the time frame is, so we can't be too sure one way or the other if this is a good move or not by the club. We have to trust what they say. But it is contentious nevertheless. I guess you could say he was unlucky to be delisted in the first place. That has to be said. But replacing an injured player with another injured player does feel in itself a bit odd. So I'm sure you guys will discuss it in the comments below. Go crazy with it. I think this opens up a few possibilities for the Bombers. He's obviously a depth midfielder, but what does this mean for Dyson Sharp and Sardis and other players in that similar role? I personally would have liked to see a younger approach. Obviously, we're a young team as it is, and getting some experience in through the doors is never an issue when you're one of the youngest teams in the competition. But Will Setterfield, I mean, with the injury and everything, I was probably treading on the side of, you know, going with a younger option or a different player to be adding to the list. But we'll see how he goes. Obviously, he's got the year to prepare and to get himself ready to play footy again. On his day, he's a great footballer, you know, and he's been one of our best footballers when playing in the last few years. The issue is he just hasn't been able to get on the park, that's going to be an issue again in 2026. So hopefully under Matt Innes, we get to see more of Will Setterfield. If he's on the list, we need to see more of Will Setterfield. He's got the 1 year with the Bombers again. This really is, you'd think his last chance. I thought 2025 was his last chance, but 2026 for Will Setterfield really is the last chance. We'll see how he goes. Because of this, though, we can now say, for hopefully the last time, that the playing list has been finalised for 2026. We've got 45 players on the list. Nic Martin inactive, so technically 44. We can add more if another player is added to the inactive list, but hopefully it doesn't come to that. Hopefully Will Setterfield is the last Essendon footballer we are talking about until next year's off-season in the trade period and the draft. But yeah, welcome back, Will Setterfield. All the best. Obviously, you know, some are going to agree, some are going to disagree with the decision. I'm probably treading on disagreement myself. But you know, he's an Essendon player. He's in the black and red, so we've got to support him. We've got we're behind you. Hopefully you get your body right and play some good footy like we know you can in 2026. Alrighty, now we're going to talk a little bit about the board because there's been some updates there. I mean, this part of footy isn't as sexy. You know, this isn't the juiciest content for you guys watching. I'm sure a few of you might be skipping past to the next part of the video anyway. But we got to talk about it. You know, it might not be as interesting, but it's probably more important than, you know, the players and everything, the behind behind the scenes stuff. So the annual general meeting tomorrow, the AGM is tomorrow night, Wednesday the 17th of December, after our final training session of the year. So that's going to be good. They're going to officially announce the board for 2026, but it has been voted on already by us members. You would have got an email from the club asking you to vote for the board election. We all have voted. The results are in, and it has gone as expected. Andrew Welsh, the president, has been re-elected. He has got a landslide of votes, over 7,000 votes to his name. So he won in an absolute landslide. And Kate O'Sullivan was the other elected or re-elected. She's actually the longest serving board member for the Bombers, but she's been re-elected with over 4,000 votes. There was some unlucky in the race not to be up there. Obviously, they're going up against some hard competition, but Luke Maxfield in particular is a really vocal and outspoken Essendon fan. He's done a lot of work behind the scenes trying to, rally the fans and members together. He got over 1,000 votes in third place, but he was, beaten out by Kate O'Sullivan and Andrew Welsh, who will stay on the board for 2026. There's been a bit of change in this space over the years. Obviously, Dave Barham has, resigned at the end of last year. Dean Solomon moving from the board to coaching, which I'll talk about in a second, and Ted Richards coming in to replace him in the process. But yeah, congratulations to Andrew Welsh and to Kate O'Sullivan. In other behind-the-scenes news, the coaching setup for 2026 has now been officially finalised by the club. So any hope that you guys, to see Ken Hinckley's name emerge it's gone. It won't emerge. He will, although, be quite a big figure in the footy landscape, because he's going to be on Fox Footy talking regularly on the Fox Footy games, which is going to be fun because he's always a good voice to have around. So I think he's replacing Dermot Brereton. So that is definitely a good change for Fox Footy. Well done. But yeah, the 2026 coaching setup is as follows. It's complete. Brad Scott will, of course, be the senior coach again. He runs out of contract in 2027. So he's coached this year and next year unless a decision is made earlier. I personally don't think it should. Brent Stanton will continue as the stoppage coach, former Essendon player Brent Stanton. Cam Roberts will continue as the forwards coach. There's a bit of shuffling around in other roles. So Ben Jacobs was the defence coach last year. He is now going to be the midfield coach, which is where he was as a player. He's taking over from Daniel John Siracusa, who left to Hawthorn, and taking over the defence from Ben Jacobs is Dean Solomon, the former Essendon player, and of course the board member. I think he's better served as a coach than a board member, to be honest. Dean Solomon, he was of course a big figure in unifying the former Essendon players, sending out that email, and that was his last act as a board member. But I like him as a coach, and the players seem to as well. They're really rallying behind him, and he's a big figure out there from what I hear. We've also got a new ruck coach. Old Gold will don the polo, I guess, this time. Todd Goldstein is our ruck coach for 2026. I believe he's also playing local footy for Pascoe Vale, potentially. I might have that wrong. Correct me in the comments below if that is wrong, but he is playing local footy at the same time. That's not where it ends, though. You've also got David Rath, who continues as the coaching, innovation, and game strategy manager. Cam Joyce will continue as the VFL head coach. He, of course, took over last minute after the tragic passing of Dale Tapping. Working alongside him is James Polkinghorne. He's the development and pathways manager. Also in the development team, we've got Michael Hurley for the fourth straight year, and Toby McLean, the Western Bulldogs premiership player, is taking over from the outgoing Travis Cloak. There are some more former players, not Essendon players, but former players, I believe, in the VFL coaching space, but I'm not sure if the club has finalised that or made it official yet, so I won't comment on that right now. But that is our coaching structure for 2026 complete, finalised. There's going to be a lot of eyes on it for 2026. I think, the playing list has been rejuvenated and they're working through that really tirelessly over the last few years in the list management space. But I think the next step might be, if 2026 isn't to go to plan, to look at the coaches and what's happening there, because there's been a few of these members who have been at the club for quite a while now. Obviously, Daniel John Siracusa leaving is less than ideal. We replace him with Dean Solomon on the team as well. But you've got guys like Jacobs and Roberts who have been at the clubs for a few years. I think eyes will be on all coaches really across, especially Brad Scott, who really is the head of it all. But yeah, I think that's the case with any bottom four team. So hopefully these guys that exit the bottom four go a bit higher up the ladder and prove us all all wrong. So best of luck to these guys. I hope they go well. Now, guys, before we go, we've got to update you a little bit on training because it is the final training session of 2025 tomorrow on Wednesday, the 17th of December. Now, you guys might be thinking, you might have seen my recent video where I talked about the structure of training. The Mondays and Fridays are the intense sessions to really get out and see. They are the ones that if you've got free spare time, go watch those training sessions. And the Wednesdays are the lighter work usually. That's not the case this week. So yesterday, on Monday, the boys had a lighter session. It was skills-based, which means Wednesday, tomorrow, the final session of the year, is going to be a big one. So if you've got free time, if you've got the days spare, off work, the kids at school, I think it's the school holidays anyway, go check out this session. It's the final session of the year for the Bombers. It's going to be tough. It's going to be grueling. I was out there last Friday, and it is really hard work out there, and I think this Wednesday one might be prepping up to be a big one potentially. So this is the final session of the year. You guys in the comments might be saying, these boys shouldn't stop training. They should be working hard, non-stop throughout the year. I'm sure you can think that, but the AFL doesn't allow that. So clubs have to have the same mandatory time off away from the club on an official basis. All clubs have the same time allocated to training and, time away. And Essendon, if they were to, train on an official capacity, continuing this year past this Wednesday, they would get in a lot of trouble. So rest assured, I think the boys are going to be training on an unofficial basis still throughout the new year, and then early in January, they'll return to training in a few weeks. I think 3 weeks away from the club, back to hard work. Now, this is going to be a really interesting period because the November to December training pre-season period is usually really fitness-based. You get lots of hard running, lots of skill work. When you get to January and February, that is where you really ramp up on the match sim and the positional structure and everything, and that's where it gets really interesting. So I haven't talked about training too much lately. I've only had a few training videos out really, but in January and February, I'm going to be ramming them down your throat. There's going to be lots of training talk because that is when it really gets interesting and you find out more about the team for 2026. So stay tuned to the channel because we're going to be talking a lot about it. Stay tuned to other channels, Fiona, Bomber Banter, Scooter McNeese, the podcast there, Rick Edwards. I'm obviously having Fiona on the channel, but I might have some more guests on next year as well. So yeah, tomorrow is the last session of 2025. Get out to it if you can. But guys, that is all the news I've got for you today. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening to me yap on. I didn't yap as much as I thought I would, to be honest. I've reined it in. But yeah, this will probably be one of the last videos for 2025. There's obviously Friday with Bomber Banter and maybe one or two others ahead of that. But I've been sporadically releasing them to end the year, and then in 2026 we're really going to ramp up the content and talk more about the club because that is when the information really starts coming out. So stay tuned for 2026. It's going to be a big year for the channel, but hopefully for the Bombers as well. But that is all today. Make sure you like if you enjoyed, subscribe if you are new to the channel, and as always, go Bombers.